The crystal chandelier above the dining table caught the afternoon light and scattered it across my mother's pearl necklace like fractured promises. I could smell the lavender sachets she kept in every room, mixed with my father's cologne, something expensive that came in a black bottle with gold lettering. The air conditioning hummed too loud. Everything in this house hummed too loud. My sister Vanessa's laugh cut through the silence like breaking glass. "I mean, honestly, Claire," she said, swirling her wine, a Bordeaux that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "A courthouse wedding? You could have at least tried to make it look legitimate." I pressed my thumb into the edge of the mahogany table. The wood was cool, solid, real. I needed something real. "It was legitimate," I said quietly. "It was what we wanted." My mother didn't look up from her phone. She'd been scrolling through something for the past 10 minutes, her French manicure clicking against the screen. "What you wanted," she repeated, her voice flat. "Yes, well. We all make choices." The implication hung in the air like smoke. I'd sent them the invitation 3 months ago. A simple card with our names, Claire and Marcus, and the date. The courthouse was small, intimate. Exactly what we dreamed of. I told myself it was fine that the seats behind us stayed empty. I told myself I didn't scan the door every 5 minutes, hoping. My father finally spoke, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "Your sister's engagement party is in 6 weeks. The Rothschild estate. 400 guests. That's how you announce a commitment to someone." "Announce it to who?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. His knife paused mid-cut. The silence that followed felt like falling. "To the people who matter," Vanessa answered for him, leaning back in her chair with that satisfied smile she'd perfected since childhood. "You know, people with actual connections. Actual futures." She glanced at Marcus, who sat beside me with his hands folded in his lap. "No offense." "None taken," Marcus said evenly. His voice was calm, but I felt his knee brush against mine under the table. A small gesture. Grounding. My Aunt Margot, mother's sister, draped in Chanel and judgment, set down her fork with a delicate clink. "It's just surprising, darling. After everything your parents have done for you. The education, the opportunities. And you choose." She waved her hand vaguely in Marcus's direction. "This." I felt Marcus tense beside me, but he didn't move. Didn't defend himself. That was the worst part. He never defended himself against them because he knew it would only make things harder for me. "Marcus is a construction manager," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "He's good at what he does." "I'm sure he is." My mother finally looked up from her phone, her eyes sliding over Marcus like he was furniture. "It's just not what we envisioned for you." What they'd envisioned was Richard Huntington III, the hedge fund manager's son with the weak chin and the wandering hands. They'd paraded him in front of me at every charity gala, every country club dinner. He'd talked about his yacht. I'd excused myself to the bathroom and stayed there until my fingers went numb from gripping the marble sink. Marcus had found me at a coffee shop 6 months later. I'd spilled my latte all over his jacket, a worn Carhartt that probably cost $40 new. He'd laughed. Actually laughed. And when he'd asked for my number, he didn't mention my last name, didn't ask about my family's company. He asked if I liked old movies. We'd watched Casablanca in his apartment that night. He lived in a 1-bedroom with furniture from IKEA and windows that looked out at a brick wall. It was the first place that ever felt like home. "The trust fund," my father said suddenly, his voice cutting through my memories. "We've been discussing it." My stomach dropped. "Given your recent, choices, he continued, dabbing his mouth with his napkin, your mother and I think it's prudent to revisit the distribution terms. Vanessa's smile widened. What does that mean? I asked, though I already knew. I could feel the trap closing. It means, my mother said, sliding her phone across the table toward me, that we're reallocating resources to family members who demonstrate sound judgment and respect for family values. The screen showed a document. Legal letterhead. My name in bold at the top, crossed out in red. You're cutting me off. We're protecting family assets, my father corrected. There's a difference. The room tilted slightly. The trust fund wasn't just money, it was my safety net, my independence, the thing that let me breathe in this family without suffocating completely. I'd planned to use it to open my own graphic design studio. Marcus and I had looked at spaces downtown, small brick buildings with good light. This is because I married him. It wasn't a question. This is because you've consistently shown poor judgment, my mother said. The marriage is simply the culmination of a pattern. Vanessa laughed again, that crystalline sound. Oh, come on, Claire. Don't be dramatic. You'll be fine. I'm sure Marcus can provide for you. She said his name like it was something dirty. That's what husbands do, right? My Aunt Margot leaned forward, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. I saw your wedding photos on Facebook. That dress looked like it came from a department store. It did, I said numbly. Exactly. She sat back, satisfied. That tells you everything you need to know. Marcus's hand found mine under the table. His palm was warm, calloused from work. Real. Maybe we should go, he said quietly, just to me. But my father wasn't finished. He never was. Before you leave, there's one more thing. He pulled a folder from beside his chair, he had it prepared, planned this entire ambush. We're also transferring primary ownership of the summer house to Vanessa. Since she's getting married to someone appropriate, she'll need a proper venue for family gatherings. The summer house. The one place in this family that had ever felt like mine. The reading nook in the tower. The dock where I'd learned to swim. The kitchen where grandmother taught me to make her lemon cake before she died. You can't, I whispered. It's already done, Vanessa said, examining her nails. Daddy signed the papers this morning. I'm thinking of renovating. That whole vintage cottage aesthetic is so over. Something inside me cracked. Not broke, breaking would have been cleaner. This was a fracture, slow and deep, the kind that spreads through ice before it shatters. 7 years, I said, my voice shaking. 7 years I've tried to be what you wanted. Perfect grades. Perfect manners. Perfect everything. And it was never enough. That's not true, my mother said, but her tone was bored. You didn't come to my wedding. We had commitments. You didn't even call. Claire. My father's voice held a warning. Don't make a scene. But I was already standing, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Marcus stood with me, his hands still holding mine. I need to leave, I said. I need to leave right now. Sit down, my father commanded. I didn't sit down. I walked toward the door, Marcus beside me, and behind us, I heard Vanessa's voice, bright with victory. Guess she finally figured out where she stands. The drive home was silent. Marcus drove because my hands were shaking too badly to grip the wheel. His truck smelled like sawdust and coffee. Normal things. Good things. I didn't cry until we were inside our apartment. Then it came all at once, huge, gasping sobs that bent me in half. Marcus caught me before I hit the floor, holding me while I broke apart. "I'm sorry," I kept saying. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" His voice was rough, gentle. "For dragging you into this. For subjecting you to them. For, Claire." He pulled back enough to look at me, his hands framing my face. "The only thing I'm sorry about is that I didn't walk you out of there sooner." His eyes were gray, steady. I'd always loved his eyes. They didn't calculate, didn't scheme. They just saw me. "They took everything," I whispered. "They took money." "That's not everything." But he didn't understand. How could he? He'd grown up normal, worked for everything he had. He didn't know what it was like to have your worth measured in trust funds and property deeds, to be discarded the moment you stopped being useful. My phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. I pulled it out with numb fingers. The family group chat, the one I'd been added to but never really belonged in, was exploding with messages. "Vanessa, can you believe she actually walked out? So disrespectful. Aunt Margot, I always knew she had her grandmother's temperament. Unstable. Cousin Jennifer, what did she expect? She married a construction worker. Face with tears of joy mother, she's always been difficult. This is just who she is." The messages kept coming. Screenshots started appearing on Instagram, Vanessa posting about family drama, about entitled siblings who throw tantrums when they don't get their way. She'd tagged me. Of course she'd tagged me. By midnight, my DMs were flooded. Old friends from prep school I hadn't talked to in years, suddenly interested in the scandal. Strangers sending laughing emojis. Someone had found our wedding photos and posted them in a private group called Rich Kids Behaving Badly with the caption, "When you marry down and your family cuts you off." I turned my phone face down and pressed my palms against my eyes. "They're destroying me," I said. "They're literally destroying me online and they think it's funny." Marcus took the phone gently from my hands and powered it off. "Then we don't look. Not tonight. But everyone who matters is right here," he said. "In this room. With you." I wanted to believe him. But the walls felt like they were closing in. The apartment suddenly seemed smaller, shabbier. The second-hand couch, the IKEA bookshelf, the kitchen with its chipped tiles, it all looked different now. Looked like failure. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. "I don't know how to be poor." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, his silhouette dark against the streetlights. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. My heart stuttered. "What?" He turned, and in the dim light, his expression was unreadable. "I haven't been completely honest with you. About who I am." The bottom dropped out of my world. "You're married." "What?" "No." He crossed back to me quickly. "God, no. Nothing like that." "Then what?" He ran a hand through his hair, dark, slightly too long, always falling into his eyes. "My full name is Marcus Chin." I waited. The name meant nothing to me. "Marcus Chin," he repeated. "Of Chin Development Group." The words took a moment to process. Then they hit like ice water. Chin Development Group. The commercial real estate empire. The family that owned half the downtown skyline. The company featured in Forbes, in Fortune, in every business magazine my father kept in his study. "That's not funny," I said. "I'm not joking. You're a construction manager. I am. For my family's company. I work on site because I like the work. Because I wanted to learn the business from the ground up, not from a boardroom. He knelt in front of me, his hands gentle on my knees. I didn't tell you because when we met, you didn't know who I was. You just saw me. Not my last name, not my bank account. Just me. I stared at him. At this man I'd married in a courthouse with my best friend as witness because my family couldn't be bothered to show up. This man who drove a Ford F-150 and lived in a one-bedroom apartment and wore Carhartt jackets. You're rich, I said stupidly. My family is wealthy, yes. How wealthy? He hesitated. Very. More than mine? Claire, how much more? 3 times more. Maybe 4. It depends on the market. I stood abruptly, pacing to the window and back. My mind was racing, trying to recalibrate everything I thought I knew. Why didn't you tell me? Because of this. He gestured between us. Because I knew it would change things. Because every relationship I'd ever had before you was about what I could provide, what doors I could open, what advantages I could offer. And then I met you, and you didn't want anything from me except honest conversation and old movies. You lied to me. I omitted information. There's a difference. Is there? My voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. Because right now, it feels like everyone in my life has been lying to me about who they are. About what they want from me. I want you, Marcus said, standing. That's all I've ever wanted. You. Exactly as you are. But you watched me struggle. You watched my family humiliate me tonight, and you just sat there, because you asked me to. His voice was firm now. You asked me to let you handle them. To not make waves. So I didn't. He was right. I had asked him that. Multiple times. I sank onto the couch, the fight draining out of me. I don't understand any of this. Marcus sat beside me, not touching, giving me space. My mother, he said quietly, was cut off by her family when she married my father. He was an immigrant, a contractor. They thought she was throwing her life away. She built Chin Development with him from nothing, and she never forgave her family for abandoning her when she needed them most. I looked at him. Really looked at him. When I saw what your family was doing to you, he continued, I recognized it. The manipulation. The control. The way they made their love conditional on your obedience. And I knew that if I revealed who I was, they'd either try to use it to control you more, or they'd find a way to twist it into another weapon against you. So what now? I asked. What are we supposed to do with this information? Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Simple. Elegant. A name and number. This is my family's attorney, he said. She specializes in financial abuse and inheritance law. If you want, we can have her look into what your parents did today. The trust fund reallocation, the property transfer. Make sure everything was legal. I took the card. The paper was heavy, expensive. Real. And if it wasn't legal? Then we have options. I turned the card over in my fingers. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to walk away from all of it, to never think about my family again. But another part, a part that was tired of being small, of being dismissed, of being erased, wanted something else. I don't want revenge, I said slowly. I want truth. Marcus nodded. Then that's what we'll get. The attorney's name was Linda Park, and she had an office downtown with windows overlooking the river. She met us 3 days later, after I'd finally turned my phone back on and faced the digital carnage my family had created. The story they'd crafted was damning. Ungrateful daughter throws tantrum when parents make reasonable financial decisions. Poor husband probably married me for money and was disappointed to learn there wasn't any. Various relatives chiming in with anecdotes about my teenage rebellion, my difficult personality, my inability to appreciate privilege. Vanessa had posted a photo of herself at the summer house with the caption, "Grateful for parents who invest in children who respect family values." 2 hearts. It had 6,000 likes. Linda Park listened to everything without interrupting. Then she asked to see documentation, the trust fund papers, the property deed, every piece of communication from my parents regarding the reallocation. I'd kept everything. Emails, texts, the legal documents they'd shown me at dinner. I'd photographed them with shaking hands before we left. Linda spread them across her desk, her expression neutral but focused. After 20 minutes, she looked up. "This is interesting," she said. "Interesting how?" I asked. "Your trust fund was established by your grandmother, correct?" "Yes. When she died. And the terms of the trust explicitly state that the funds are to be distributed to you on your 25th birthday, with your parents serving as temporary trustees until that date." "Right. That's next month." Linda tapped one of the documents. "Your parents don't have the authority to reallocate these funds. The trust was irrevocable. They can't change the terms." The words took a moment to sink in. "What?" "They lied to you," Linda said simply. "The money is yours. It always has been. They can't touch it." Marcus's hand found mine. "And the house?" I asked. Linda frowned, flipping through more papers. "The summer house was also part of your grandmother's estate. According to this, it was to be held in joint ownership between you and your sister until your 30th birthdays, at which point you'd have the option to buy each other out or maintain shared ownership. But my father said, your father can't transfer property he doesn't own. If he signed papers this morning, they're not worth the paper they're printed on." I felt something shift in my chest. Something like breath, like air, like the first moment after surfacing from deep water. "They've been controlling you with money that was never theirs to control," Linda continued. "And if I had to guess, they've been doing it for years. Threatening to cut you off, holding the trust over your head, making you believe your security depended on their approval." I thought about every decision I'd second-guessed. Every time I'd stayed silent at dinner, swallowed an insult, made myself smaller. Every time I'd chosen their comfort over my own dignity because I couldn't afford to lose their support. "What do we do?" I asked. Linda smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who'd fought battles like this before and won. "We educate them," she said. The next 2 weeks were a blur of documents and phone calls. Linda brought in a forensic accountant who discovered that my parents had been using trust fund dividends to maintain their lifestyle, not illegal, technically, since they were trustees, but ethically questionable at best. They'd been telling me the trust was underperforming while pocketing the returns. Marcus's family investigator, a quiet woman named Sarah who could find anything digital, uncovered the social media campaign. The private group chats where Vanessa and my mother had orchestrated the public humiliation. Screenshots of them laughing about my meltdown, planning exactly which photos to post and when. "This is calculated harassment," Linda said, reviewing Sarah's report. "With intent to damage your reputation and isolate you from your support system." "Can we use it?" Marcus asked. "We can do better than use it. We can respond to it." I'd been quiet through most of these meetings, watching pieces of my life get reorganized into evidence, into patterns of abuse I'd never had words for. But now I spoke. "I want a family meeting," I said. "One more. With everyone there." Linda looked at me carefully. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Marcus squeezed my hand. "Then we'll be right beside you." We scheduled it for a Saturday afternoon at my parents' house. They agreed readily, probably thought it was me coming to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, to accept whatever crumbs they were willing to offer. I wore a simple black dress. Marcus wore a suit, not his work clothes, but a charcoal Tom Ford that fit him like it was made for him. Because it was. I'd watched him get dressed that morning and realized I'd never seen him in his real clothes before. In the armor of the world he came from. We arrived in his car. Not the truck. The Porsche 911 GT3 Midnight Blue that he kept in a private garage across town. My mother opened the door, and I watched her expression shift when she saw the car in the driveway. Confusion, then calculation, then something like concern. "Claire," she said. "And Marcus. Please, come in." The family was assembled in the living room like before. Vanessa on the couch, my father in his chair, Aunt Margot perched by the window. They all turned when we entered, and I saw the same progression of emotions ripple through the room. Vanessa recovered first. "Nice car," she said. "Did you rent it for the occasion?" "It's mine," Marcus said mildly. "I have 3 others, but this one's my favorite for city driving." Silence. My father stood slowly. "Who are you?" "I'm Marcus Chin," he said, extending his hand. "Of Chin Development Group. I believe you tried to partner with us about 5 years ago on the Harbor District project?" My father's face went pale. We couldn't meet your terms." "No," Marcus agreed. "You couldn't." He didn't shake my father's hand. He lowered it and came to stand beside me instead. I pulled out the folder Linda had prepared. Handed one copy to my father, one to my mother. "This is documentation," I said, my voice steady, "of every fraudulent claim you've made regarding my trust fund. Every dividend you've collected and failed to disclose. Every threat you've used to control my behavior with money that was never yours to control." My mother opened her folder. I watched the blood drain from her face. "This is also documentation," I continued, "of the coordinated harassment campaign you and Vanessa orchestrated across social media. Screenshots, timestamps, testimony from witnesses who were in your private groups." Vanessa stood up. "You can't." "I can," I said. "And I have. I also have documentation showing that the summer house transfer is invalid. The property is jointly owned by Vanessa and me, as per grandmother's will. Any papers Dad signed are fraudulent." The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning hum. "Now," I said, "we can handle this one of 2 ways. We can go public. Linda has connections with several journalists who'd be very interested in a story about financial elder abuse of trust terms and coordinated family harassment. Or we can handle this privately." "What do you want?" my father asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want an apology," I said. "A real one. I want you to retract every lie you've spread about me and Marcus. I want you to explain to everyone that you made a mistake, that you spoke in anger, that you were wrong." "Absolutely not," Vanessa said. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At my sister who'd spent our entire lives competing with me over things that didn't matter, who'd weaponized our parents' love, who'd smiled while tearing me apart. "Then we go public," I said. "And you explain to your 400 wedding guests why the FBI is investigating your family for trust fund fraud." FBI? My mother's voice cracked. Linda filed a report yesterday, Marcus said. Financial exploitation of estate assets. They take it seriously. It wasn't entirely true. Linda had filed preliminary paperwork, but it would take months to process. But they didn't know that. And the fear in their eyes told me everything I needed to know about their guilt. My father sank into his chair. "What do you want?" he asked again. "I already told you. Apologies. Public retractions. And access to my trust fund, as is my legal right. I turn 25 in 2 weeks. I want confirmation that the full amount will be transferred to an account in my name, with no restrictions, no conditions, no strings attached." "And the house?" Vanessa asked weakly. "We'll discuss the house," I said. "Like adults. When you're ready to have a real conversation about what grandmother actually wanted for us." I set the folders on the coffee table. Looked at each of them in turn. "You taught me that love in this family is conditional," I said. "That acceptance requires obedience. That money equals worth. But you were wrong. About all of it. The only thing money equals is options. And now I have them." I turned to leave. Marcus moved with me, his hand at the small of my back. "Claire," my mother called. I paused. "Your grandmother would be ashamed of you." I looked back at her. At this woman who'd given birth to me but never really seen me. Who'd measured my value in compliance and found me wanting. "No," I said quietly. "She wouldn't. She left me that money specifically because she knew what you were. She gave me an escape route. It just took me a while to find the courage to use it." We walked out. Into the sunshine. Into the sound of the Porsche's engine purring to life. Into the rest of our lives. The apologies came 3 days later. Stilted, carefully worded statements on social media. My mother's Instagram post about family misunderstandings and hasty words. My father's LinkedIn post about the importance of supporting children's choices. Vanessa's story, quickly deleted, but screenshotted by Sarah, admitting she'd exaggerated certain situations. The damage couldn't be fully undone. But the truth was out there now, documented and witnessed. And that was enough. My trust fund transferred on my 25th birthday. $2.4 million, plus 7 years of accumulated returns they'd hidden from me. I kept half in investments. Used a quarter to start my design studio. Donated the rest to a foundation supporting people escaping financial abuse. Marcus and I moved out of the apartment. Not to somewhere ostentatious, we liked our neighborhood, liked our coffee shop, liked our life. Just to a bigger place with better light. With room for my drafting table and his architectural models. With windows that looked at trees instead of brick. We kept both cars. The truck for normal days, the Porsche for reminders. 6 months later, Vanessa called. Not to apologize, she'd never really learned how. But to talk about the summer house. We met there, just the two of us, in the kitchen where grandmother taught us to bake. "I don't know how to do this," she said finally, her voice small. "How to be your sister without the scripts they gave us." "Neither do I admitted. "But maybe that's where we start." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was a door left open. A possibility. I think grandmother would have liked that. I'm driving home now, the late afternoon sun turning everything gold. Marcus is in the passenger seat, scrolling through paint samples for the studio's accent wall. The radio plays something soft and old. The world spins on. My phone buzzes, a text from my mother. Just 3 words, "Can we talk?" I don't answer right away. Maybe I will tomorrow. Maybe next week. Maybe never. But the choice is mine now. The power is mine. The life is mine. And nobody, not my parents, not my sister, not anyone, can take that away from me again. I press my foot to the gas. The Porsche responds like breathing, like freedom, like every door I was told was closed suddenly opening all at once. Marcus looks over at me and smiles. "Where to?" he asks. "Forward," I say. And I mean it.